Good. Hello and happy Friday, the 20th, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to episode 10 of Virtually Incorrect. I'm your host, Gunter. Each and every week, I bring you 4 guests from the community together to discuss all things virtual reality in virtual reality, with nothing off limits and nothing censored. Want to be a guest on the show? Send me a message on Reddit at Gunter444. You can also join us in the studio audience during the live show at any time. Just download Riftmax and hop in. Please be courteous while the show is in progress. Before we meet the guest, I want to thank Riftmax, the guest and audience here in the studio, and everyone watching at home. Really appreciate your support. And tonight we have an amazing panel of VR developers, personalities, and enthusiasts here to chat it up. First we have MikeArms, developer of Riftmax Theater. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Gunter.
Absolutely. And we also have Dave, editor-in-chief of VirtualRealityReviewer.com. How's it going, Dave?
Great, thanks. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for staying up so late, or maybe you got up very early. That's something I don't do very often. All right, next up we got MS Coder 610, developer of Duke VR. How you doing?
Hey, glad to be here.
And finally we have Nateight, developer on Team Metatron, the team behind VR Chess. What's up, Nate?
Hey, everybody.
And before we start things off with our stories, I just want to announce the Hitbox stream poll this week, and that is, how much do you plan to spend on VR peripherals? And we basically got a couple things there, like less than 100, 100 to 300, 300 to 500, and 500 and up. And we'll share those results at the end of the show. All right, let's dive into some talk here. We got some VR stories and scuttlebutt. First up is consumer V1 will not have the screen door effect. We're addressing that. Posted by Cunning Corey. He says, in an interview with VentureBeat, Oculus CEO Brendan Iribe stated that CV1 will not have a screen door effect. And we have a comment by Mr. Mean Hour. The best part of the article for me was the consumer version is going to be another really big leap. That for me is the first time I got the true sense of presence. This gave me hints of presence in DK2. Consumer V1 really delivers. That's just really excites me. As much as I love DK1, I didn't feel presence, but a high sense of immersion, and I can't wait. So I kind of butchered reading that, but let's talk about it here. What do you think? The screen door effect's going to go away? Not going to be perceptible? Nate?
Well, it depends on how you define the screen door, okay? Abrash himself says that the resolution of the human eye it tops out somewhere around 10K, and I can't imagine we're even going to get a 4K screen in the consumer Rift. So there's not going to be a screen door effect maybe, but there's going to be some kind of perceptible, like if you really look real hard, you're going to be able to see something that is a pixel. It's not going to be as bad as the DK1, obviously, but I don't think the pixelization of VR goes away for a couple of generations of the hardware, at least.
And VR, Dave, what's your thoughts?
I think eventually it will go away, but I don't expect it to be gone for CV1 unless it's coming out in about 5 years' time, because nobody knows when it's coming out. But I expect it to be out like next year, and that it'll probably, as I said, it'll probably be just a minor step up from the development kit too, because all along Oculus have been saying this is very close to what we're actually going to be releasing. So, as I said, it's all a matter of perception.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of things. Mike, what are your thoughts? And what about this DK1 not giving you presence? Have you been able to try a DK2?
I haven't even tried the DK2 yet, but like personally, I think the DK1 gives me a pretty good sense of presence, just because I think right now you have to try to have that sense, when you put it on. You have to like add a little bit of imagination to it. But when I first read the story, it made me think of that somebody actually solved this problem with the DK1 by putting I think it was like a 3M, some sort of sheet in front of it.
Yeah, the privacy filter stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they're saying they're going to solve it, it doesn't mean that they're going to make the screen like so much better that it's going to be like no screen door effect. Actually, the screen door effect doesn't really bother me that much. If you think, like I think if there's a screen door in front of me, then it's like I'm there still, It's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, so I mean, it's the black space in between the pixels that creates the screen door. So, I mean, it's not really that big of a deal.
That's pretty interesting, and I early on basically did the same thing. I just was so compelled with what I was doing in VR that it didn't really bother me. And something that I feel is giving me presence is being in social spaces and being able to point and really interview you guys and all this sort of stuff, or go to karaoke and sing there. That brings me in big time. Now, I've never tried, DK2, and so I'm sure it's just going to be way, extremely better, and maybe there would be this difference of immersion in that, in my opinion, with the presence. But, I definitely think social is what does it for me. How about you, MS Coder?
Yeah, I would agree that social is definitely a big part of it. Yeah, like sitting here or being in karaoke, that definitely helps for presence. I would be pretty surprised if the consumer version, if there was a screen higher than like 1440p, but I guess we can still hope. I think Nate said it pretty well. There will still be some pixelization there, but with the screen door effect hopefully gone, that should help out a lot. For me, like with the DK1, I think it's pretty hard to ignore the screen door effect, so definitely looking forward to that being better.
Yeah, I'm sure, we really are, and I definitely think for simulator sickness, I'm really interested in that for my friend who was puking in the backyard. So next month, it's pretty exciting. Any other thoughts on that topic?
One thing that I keep hearing when I try to do demos and things is everything looks like it's dancing around the edges. And that's not so much an anti-aliasing problem, so much as it's just the resolution of the DK1. Everything is kind of lower resolution, and you get this effect on the textures where a line is maybe too big or not big enough to fit into a certain number of pixels, and so when you move ever so slightly around, you get a very strange and off-putting effect. So the bigger the screens get, the less you're going to experience that, and the more you're going to be sucked into the scene that you're a part of. So bring on those 10K screens.
Yeah, also with like running at the native resolution right now, 1280 by 800, really kind of adds a lot of the jaggy, even if you're anti-aliasing as much as you can. So I think even right now, if you run 1920 by 1200, like an extended mode on your computer, so just the Rift is the main screen, like not only do I get a performance benefit, but I also get it's almost like you have a better screen going on, Like the only problem you'll have is the screen door. It's not a problem with the jaggies as much anymore, and actually it really improves the resolution. It's because it's downscaling from that 1200p. I think you call it 1200.
Yeah, and like I'm seeing all kinds of that stuff. As we're speaking, some of the lights or pieces are flickering, and it really is more noticeable when things are slowed down. I'm barely moving, and turn my head a little bit. That's when I perceive it. When you're going fast, you don't really see that, of course, because the things are jumping around. You wouldn't perceive that, but I remember totally thinking about that, but it's just not even a thought anymore. So interesting.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something you just get used to over time. Like here in Riftmax, I wouldn't say that I really notice any of that like pixel shimmering or anything like that.
I think the big test for the DK2 resolution will be racing games like iRacing and Assetto Corsa, because you're focused on such a small portion of the screen, and if the track just jumps a little bit, like, it makes a big difference to your lap time. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what a DK2 will do to my lap times in iRacing.
Yeah, very interesting. All right, cool. Well, next segment I'd like to do is something we just added a few weeks ago called the Guest Spotlight. And let's talk to MikeArms for a little bit of InterNow Games and, of course, developer of Riftmax Theater that we're in right now. So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in VR.
Yeah, you know, I live in Los Angeles. I work in IT. That's my day job. I've been doing that for about like 13 years now. I think I counted before we started the show. But yeah, you know, I mean, a lot of that had to do with, I mean, a lot of my job has to do with programming in some way, but I just started programming for real like last year. And, you know, really gotten into the coding side of it and everything. But, you know, and as far as making games, I just started about, you know, about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago. But, yeah, like the first place I thought of with VR was, you know, movie theater, you know, like a lot of other people. Like, what a great place to be in VR, you know. I guess the VR cinema demo kind of enlightened some people because he was out with that like really quick, you know, and you could see, wow, this actually works, you know. And I've always loved 3D gaming and 3D in general, anything that immerses me into like another world, kind of like you know, obviously like VR. When VR came along, it was just like out of left field. I was like, oh my god, this is like the most amazing thing in the world. I mean, at first I was super excited because VR was going to actually make developers think about making 3D games again, because the whole 3D vision stuff was like dying out. I mean, not dying out completely, but all the good games, like all the games that the AAA developers were making, were all of a sudden not compatible with 3D, which was just really pissing everybody off, you know. So VR came right about that same exact time, which was beautiful. So you know, I'm in 3D movies, everything else, like I really love. So you know, that's why I wanted to jump in and like the first game I was making was Tron, and it was like a demo. You know, everybody's making the demos and stuff, and then you know, I started making the theater and decided to focus on that because that was really like kind of my favorite place to be, like in VR. It turned out when I was like, you know, making the apps and stuff. So
yeah, I've been hanging out since the beginning as well, and really have enjoyed myself and really appreciate you developing this and sticking with it and you know, helping everybody out so I can bring this content here. So really, really cool. So what's next for Riftmax? Do you think this will be an ongoing project, or will you ever move on to anything else? You mentioned Tron and Riftmax. Is there anything else you thought of?
You know, honestly, you know, we just brought on another person, DZ. He's a C# master, and he's helping optimize
excellent.
Everything. And yeah, we're going to do some awesome things with Riftmax. And you know, to me, this is like my baby. I'm not leaving Riftmax. I'm going to keep making it like as just sweet as possible. And you know, you gotta stick with one thing. I think if you're going to take on some of the, I mean, the players that have come into the scene. I mean, I'm rewarded every day by like people playing the game and stuff. That's enough for me. But I have no plans of leaving this project, because if there's anything I want to do, like the Tron thing, like you're saying, we could do it right here. You know, we can make a Tron-based theater. You know, we can make some sort of Tron stage show. And speaking of like the stage shows and stuff, we have like a lot of cool ones planned. One of them is a game show, which is coming up pretty soon, and there's a couple other. The comedy show. We'll start that next week or something. But okay, so basically the idea is, you know, we're going to move to a focus of people creating their own experiences in Riftmax. We've already started that with the 4D video maker. So right now you can use the 4D effect sequencer and create your own 4D experience. And that turned out really like dynamic. The stuff people came up with like in 1 week was amazing. But that, you know, that was a dream of mine from the beginning, to do that 4D video thing, and like that's finally materializing, which is really cool. And then second, like the next thing is going to be like a stage designer. So you know, you'll be able to put whatever stage you want together, and multiple sets, like say you have 5 per player, you know, and call those up. Everybody can see them. Everybody can walk through your stage, and there's be hundreds of objects and stuff to choose from. So yeah, you know, we'll focus in on the stage next. So. And then after that, it moves to like the theater designer. Ultimately, like, well, one of the visions like I had recently was that you could like run your own nightclub and have like 4D like nightclub stuff going on, and people would just join your nightclub. And you know, ultimately, I want to express like Riftmax is all about running your own theater the way you want, you know, and and it's all up to the server, and it's like, that was the ultimate goal from the beginning, so.
Yeah, excellent. I can't wait to add a stripper pole and dancer to my show. Been chomping at the bit for that. And I'm glad you said what you did. That's exactly the news I want to hear, is that you're continuing on this and this is your baby. So also speaking of things I want to hear, I'm very curious, which show do you love more, Virtually Incorrect or Karaoke Night?
You would probably think that I like Karaoke Night more because I missed the last 3 shows of yours, but
and you're an epic singer. Like all of us.
I love them both equally,
Mm-hmm.
Each has a very, very unique vibe to it, and there's no reason to like one over the other,
I like karaoke better, but that's just my preference. All right, our next story is standing versus seated experience in the Rift VR, posted by Capitan Super Gile. I was reading an interview with Brendan Iribe, published earlier today, and in it, he once again mentioned the seated experience that Oculus is focusing on. Now, this is something I've heard from him, Palmer and Nate, over the past year, and it's something that's been irritating me for a while. On one hand, I understand that it's out of cautiousness for the potential risks of using the device while standing. However, I wish they'd address this issue in a different way. Just standing up in VR when your avatar is not seated is an order of magnitude more immersive than just sitting. I'm looking forward to driving games, flight stuff, but I don't want to spend the next few years in a cockpit or driver's seat exclusively. So that's interesting. Mike, what do you think about that?
Yeah, from the beginning, I was trying to design like a backpack that had a laptop in it, and like me and my friend, he's got one too, so we could just walk around. When everybody saw when you saw the original holodeck demo those guys were doing, that walking around and actually touching things that were in the room, like put into VR, that's what really like piques your awareness that like, wow, this is like amazing. And honestly, I was really upset like when I heard that they're targeting the seated experience, and it just sounded like, okay, well, giving up on something that's just such an amazing idea. Because like when I play Half-Life 2 now, I do it standing up, just because that puts you in the moment, It's like, if you can stand up and somehow target that experience, it would just be like mind-blowing, as opposed to, okay, but then there's obviously reasons why they're doing it. One is liability.
Sure.
Yeah, they don't want people falling off the balcony and then suing them. I mean, that's obvious. And number 2 is it makes it a little bit easier with the camera. But I honestly see Morpheus maybe going a little bit further quicker because they don't have that target of the seated experience right now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the seated experience. I think it works very well, and it's something to definitely develop a lot of stuff for that. There's a lot of potential there, but I think naturally, why would we want to sit around in the world? We would, in our own world, we don't really want to do that all the time, or maybe us, because we sit at a computer way too long, but, basically you don't want to do that. You want to get up and walk. Nate, what are your thoughts?
I could probably talk about this one for an entire 3-hour show.
Yeah,
because
we've talked about it for 3 hours.
Yeah, totally. I think that the primary thing that it boils down to is, do you want consumer-appropriate positional tracking right now? Yes or no? Because if you do, and you totally do, you can't really have a completely stand-up 360 experience, because the camera can't see what you're doing when you're all the way turned around. And I don't know that you're going to be able to solve that with LEDs on the back of the headset or whatever else. Morpheus hasn't said that they're targeting a seated experience, but how the hell do you do the first bit of tracking if the eye camera sitting in front of you can't see the little bands of color things on the Morpheus headset? It can't. So you have to understand that it is the technical limitations. It is the liability. I think that there is a really good experience in there that isn't like Mike, I didn't know you were a backtopper. You're one of those people. But
What's that?
There's you're one of those folks walking around with your entire rig on in a completely different reality. That's crazy stuff.
It's just something I tried. You know, everybody's tried it.
It's cool. I think there's a really good experience in there somewhere that is standing up, but with your feet essentially planted in one place. That's totally how you want to play a shooter game or something where you are walking around. But the technical limitations are just, they're too much right now. We need to go for the low-hanging fruit of what works seated, because we'll get to the standing up experience eventually. I don't even know that GameFace is going to be able to pull off the wireless thing. But in a couple of generations of Oculus hardware, it's going to be completely untethered. It's all going to be in the headset.
Let's hear from VR Dave. Any thoughts on the story or any of the other comments from Nate and Mike?
Yeah, look, I can totally understand why they're going for the seated experience. Like, they have to say that to cover themselves against liability, totally. But like, there's nothing going to stop you from standing up and just tilting the camera up a little bit for positional tracking. Like, that's the way I play Half-Life 2 as well, and like, it's not going to stop me in the future just because they say that they want the seated experience. But I'm sure there's developers out there that are going to make experiences where you're going to be standing, you're going to be turning around. The only real limitation I see is we have the cable connected to the computer, and that's a major barrier. That's why they're saying seated experience now. But once this cable is gone, people are going to stand up and spin around. That's not going to be an issue at all.
MS Coder, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I definitely agree that if you're standing up in like a first-person game, it adds a lot to the immersion. Like everyone else said, I can kind of see why Oculus is targeting seated, though. One kind of interesting trivia bit is, like, a lot of the guys that went to work at Oculus back in the days that they were posting on the MTBS forums, a lot of them had demos of, like, laptops in a backpack, or there was that Red Rover video that's kind of like walking around in a football field, wearing a VR headset and all that kind of thing. But now, since they went to work with Oculus, it's kind of gotten closer and closer to the just standstill seated experience. But I'm also a fan of playing Half-Life 2 standing up, and I think that'll still be possible with the TK2 as long as you don't completely turn around. I think you can still choose to either stand up or sit down, and as long as you're facing the camera and you adjust it properly, I think that'll still work fine.
I wonder if you can actually get a hold of the cameras and just get another 2 cameras. 3 cameras would be plenty. You'd be sorted, just put them in different locations.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, that's a problem.
Look at what people are doing with modding Hydras and stuff. I mean, something's going to happen.
I can see a solution where there are an array of cameras all over the place, but that starts to be the same reason we're not using the Valve-style tracking system for the consumer Rift, because you need to have a very precisely laid out array of whatever in this very precisely defined space, and that's just not something that consumers are going to be able to do.
Cool stuff. All right, let's move on to another guest spotlight, and let's talk to VR Dave. David, what's your last name? How do you pronounce that? Whelan?
Whelan, yeah, that's correct.
Cool. And yeah, you're editor-in-chief at VirtualRealityReviewer.com. And so first, thank you for covering VI and listing it on your site. I, of course, really appreciate that. So cool. And if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in VR.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm actually delighted to be putting VI actually on the website. Any great content at all that we like to share with the community. I'm a web developer. I've been working as a freelance web developer about 7 years, total about 10 years, and I've been following the virtual reality Kickstarter, well, the Oculus Kickstarter since it started. But what actually made me jump into VR was when I seen Cymatic Bruce's play video when he got it the very first time. I think a lot of people were the same, and I was like, no, it couldn't be that good. But when I actually seen his reaction, because his genuine reaction, I thought, look, I better get one of these headsets, and ever since I've been hooked. Like, originally I started up the website to do reviews because as I was playing demos, I was watching a lot of Let's Play videos up online, and what you do is you get kind of extreme reactions in a lot of these videos. A lot of the Let's Play reviewers, they just play, say, horror games or jump scares or stuff that might make them feel sick. And I was thinking, like, it's actually giving kind of, it's great to get the publicity for VR, but it's not actually shining a correct light on VR, because I thought it might like scare people off, you know, because every second video was people saying, oh look, I think I want to get sick. So I was thinking, look, maybe we might do something and we'll actually show demos where it's not like jump scares or roller coasters. We'll actually show demos from other developers that might not be seen, like you wouldn't see a Riftmax review on a Let's Play video, for instance.
Yeah, right. That's great. So both your site and videos are very polished and presented in a consistent and professional manner. Why did you choose to take this route when so many others have gone for the more informal approach?
As I was saying, it's like we didn't really want to do Let's Play videos. Like, even though like I love watching some of the Let's Plays, especially Jacksepticeye. I think he's absolutely hilarious. But as I was saying, like, we wanted to play games and experiences that people might not have heard, and give them some kind of publicity. And a lot of times when you are reviewing, like, you'll have to sit down and play through it maybe 2 or 3 times, and then you can sit down and just, if you sit down and write out your thoughts, you could be a lot more concise than actually just having a gut reaction to something right there and then.
It's very interesting. And what do you think will be most exciting thing that will happen when the CV1 is released?
I think the most exciting thing is the stuff that we don't know about. Like, as I said, the first time when I got the virtual reality headset, the Oculus Rift, I thought all I'd be doing would be playing racing games and first-person shooters, but I've been surprised by the amount of time I actually spend in Riftmax and VR Janus and games like that, and actually just experiences where I'm walking around. Like, I've been blown away by the content, especially say like Titans of Space. Actually, that blew my socks off the first time I played it, and I must have played that about 4 or 5 times in a row. And like, if you have told me last year that one of my favourite experiences would have been sitting down in a boat and listening to opera music, I would have said no way. But that's the one experience that's absolutely blown my mind. So as I was saying, like, the thing that's going to excite me is the stuff that I don't know about.
Good answer. Yeah, we're on a very similar page with, you know, having these other experiences, not just games. It's a big deal for me, the social stuff. So very cool. And what do you see for yourself in the future? Do you think you'll keep reporting on VR news when VR is commonplace?
Yeah, no, I plan to keep up doing this. Like, hopefully release a couple of videos every week and keep putting up content like your show here, Gunter. And if anybody else actually wants to supply content, like, I'd be more than happy to look at it and put it up. But I actually see that there's a big future in VR. It's like, even next month there's going to be 20 or 30,000 extra kits. Like, I can see traffic to the website going up quite a bit, and then when consumer version is going to come out. Like, it's weird walking around now knowing that VR is going to be massive. It's like, say, if I teleported back 20 years ago and I was telling people about the internet, people would be like, oh no, like, that's never going to happen. How are people going to get free information? That's the kind of way I feel now, that like in 2 years time everybody is going to know about VR, but like, kind of, we know it now.
Yeah, we grew up and dealt with dial-up modems. I think we can have a headset on that's not glasses yet. People will do it. Cool, thanks VR Dave.
No problem.
Cool. Next story, there was an AMA with Palmer Luckey and Nate Mitchell, and talking all kinds of things about the Facebook acquisition, first-party content, future products. You know, if you guys could catch me up to speed, that would be really awesome. VR Dave?
Yeah, it was just basically talking about how Facebook and the money that Facebook have brought have actually changed the company. I actually think personally it's a great thing for VR, because before Facebook, like, they were selling like dev kits at cost, and they couldn't really attract the talent that they can attract now. Like, at the moment, like, they're getting the A-team. Like, every week there seems to be another story of this developer or this programmer is coming in, or like now they actually have most of Valve working for them, anybody who's involved in VR. And not just with the talent that they've got, Facebook actually have huge server farms. So when you talk about creating the metaverse, like if there's one company in the world besides Google, okay, but Google have a nasty habit of actually buying a company and shutting them down and trying to do something themselves. But Mark seems to actually leave the Oculus guys, do what they do, and I actually think in, say, 3 or 4 years' time, they'll actually create the metaverse. The servers are there, and we were talking originally when the consumer version was coming out that it might be a couple of 100,000 people would buy the consumer version. Now, with Facebook, they can actually market the billions, and I actually reckon that once the consumer version is out, they'll be selling 2-3 million easily of the first version, and then each year and a half after that, you're going to get another version, and they're going to build on top of that. So it's after, like, if there was a flow chart, it's after ramping up completely for VR. Like, I was thinking 5 years would be my dream VR. Now I'm actually thinking near 2-3 years.
Yeah, and it's a huge deal to be getting access to that user base, of course. That's going to be the huge part. MS Coder, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there were a couple of interesting points raised in there. One of them was that I think it was Palmer said that Oculus would definitely be a multi-product company, like not only working on the VR headset, but obviously they're looking at things like different methods of input too. There's another comment he made just talking about what's needed for really good motion tracking, and the 2 points he made are really low latency and very accurate tracking. Those were kind of his 2 requirements. So it definitely makes me think that Oculus is doing quite a bit of research in those areas, and it's really just a matter of time before they kind of release their own input peripheral. It's kind of amazing how in the last few months there's been so many different forms of input that have come out. There's Control VR, there's obviously STEM, there's Prio VR, and just all these things. And you kind of wonder when Oculus is going to kind of step in with their own solution and kind of override all the work that other people have been working on.
Right. And they probably will. That's very interesting. What else did you guys read in the AMA? Mike?
Yeah, well, going on MS Coder's point, it's I'm wondering when they're going to start acknowledging some of these other devices and other like the input devices and everything. They don't really acknowledge them in their but you know, I mean, most of their responses were, you know, expected, I think, but it's amazing to see where Oculus is at with their company, how they're hiring experts in all these fields that are like so important, such as the guy from NVIDIA that is actually working on the screen door effect. He actually solved that for NVIDIA. So you know, they're acquiring a team of like a powerhouse, and it's really awesome to see that, because yeah, they're going to be the dream team, and they don't want to lose the VR war to PlayStation or anybody else or Sony. You know, they want to lead the revolution. I think with the Facebook acquisition, they're going to be able to do that. As far as the article, the AMA, I didn't see anything else in there really that these guys didn't touch on that wasn't really important. I mean, that was something we haven't heard before. You know, it was just pretty much
Yeah, I think at this point they're kind of in that safe mode where they're still not talking publicly about a lot of stuff, and I don't know that there were any really bombshells that were dropped in that AMA, but it was mostly just on the order of, we're not just spending the Facebook money on hookers and champagne, we're actually doing all kinds of amazing VR stuff behind the scenes, and you'll see it eventually, and we're still fun and engaging guys who can talk about this stuff without really talking about it. I think that's
you know what struck me? What struck me as pretty funny is the back and forth between Palmer and Nate Mitchell. That was like the most interesting thing about the AMA. It was kind of like ask me one thing, but at the same time, having them have that back and forth was kind of funny to watch. I mean, to read.
Yeah. They've done so many of those interviews by now. They've got a whole shtick going, I think.
Exactly.
All right, we got another guest spotlight. We want to talk to MS Coder 610. So I do apologize for downplaying the FPS genre. I'm a big fan. Team Fortress is my favorite game. I wasn't a big Duke Nukem player, unfortunately. I don't know if it was just didn't afford it or was in Unreal Tournament land or Doom land. But you are the developer of Duke VR, so Duke Nukem, the original adaptation. So that's fantastic. I did grab Duke Nukem today and try to get it set up, but I was having some issues. So we will try that again. And so tell me a little bit about yourself and how you became interested in VR.
Yeah, so I'm a software developer by day. I work on like mobile applications for iOS and Android using C#. I'm based in Austin, Texas. So for me, VR is a hobby, but let's see, became interested in it the first time I tried a DK1 was at South by Southwest here in Austin. And this was the one a year ago when Oculus was basically set up in like a card table in the corner. They had the duct taped version of DK1. And even just with like a 90-second demo there was my first experience with virtual reality, and I was drawn in pretty much immediately. I didn't end up backing the Oculus Kickstarter, but I followed it pretty closely, and by January of 2013, that's when I pre-ordered my own dev kit one and was kind of eagerly awaiting it. So from the point I ordered it to when I actually got it, there was like a 6 months of delay of just kind of imagining what VR could bring and everything like that. So I think part of the reason I started working on the Duke Nukem project was just something to do in the meantime. And yeah, it was one of the earliest FPS games I played. I'm definitely an Unreal Tournament fan too, and that's kind of what I moved to after. But I guess Duke 3D just seemed like it would be a fun project to work on for the Rift. Also, so it was a purely programming project. Like I didn't have to worry about bringing in artwork and modeling. That's kind of a bigger learning curve for people that are starting to work on VR projects.
Cool. So what was the biggest challenge you faced when you were developing Duke VR? Were there any elements like textures or sound effects that you had to change to make the experience more VR friendly?
Let's see. As far as textures go, definitely there's some high resolution textures available for Duke that make it a lot better. Particularly, there's some weird issues with the skybox in the VR port if you're not using the high-res textures. So if anyone tries it out, I would definitely recommend using that high-res texture pack. Other than that, probably the biggest thing I did was kind of adapting the heads-up display, trying to figure out the best way to present that in VR. So like when you start up Duke Nukem, you see the main menu and it's kind of centered in the middle of your vision just to make sure that you can read all the text and everything like that. So that was one thing I did. Basically, anytime when you're not in the game world, the screen kind of shrinks and it's centered in your vision just so you can see everything. So like when the game is starting up, when you're at the loading screen, even when your character dies, it kind of zooms out like that. And partially that's for being able to read the text, like I said, and also so you don't, or to try to prevent some motion sickness.
All right, and another question for you, MS Coder. Is your work with Duke finished? Was the plan just to adapt it, or would you now consider making new content in the same engine? I see you've made some maps for Unreal Tournament in the past, and you did talk about working on that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would say for the most part, Duke is finished. It was kind of just the first VR project that I worked on. I haven't come back to it a whole lot since then. Actually, I would say, like, since I actually got my DK1, I kind of slowly transitioned just over back to VR enthusiast. Like, there's been so much content coming out and so many demos to try. It's almost hard to, like, make time to work on something when you want to try out all these other cool things that are coming out. So, yeah, that's where I'm spending most of my time right now. But definitely, at least on the Duke side, I'll get it recompiled with the newer SDK and everything, so it keeps working with DK2. At least as far as head tracking goes, I'll have to take a look at what it would take to add positional tracking to it.
Excellent. And any other projects that you might be working on in the future?
Haven't decided on anything right now. I think if I had the time to do more VR development, Unreal Engine 4 is probably the first thing I would pick up and just play around with. Just seeing a lot of cool demos from the community with that. It's cheap to get started with, so it looks like it would be a fun kind of sandbox, if nothing else.
Yeah, it is gorgeous, and Nate's with Team Metatron. I also am co-founder of Team Metatron, and switched over to UE4. I'm not. I just help with the website and whatnot, so I haven't been digging in there. But it's been fantastic for the team, and they're really loving that.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. Thanks, MS Coder. All right, next story is Miyamoto implies VR is an antisocial experience, and contrary to what Nintendo is trying to achieve. So they're really pushing their Wii U project, and they, somebody that's in their private VR experience they think's antisocial, and that they really, and I totally give it to them. I mean, I think of like Mario Kart 64 and GoldenEye 64 and playing with 4 people back in high school, and it just being the raddest thing, and it really did promote so much social. In the Wii U, I can totally see that. It's just not quite my cup of tea. So what do you guys think about this? Is VR going to be antisocial? And what do you think about Nintendo? Let's start with MS Coder.
I definitely don't think VR is antisocial. I mean, even just being here in Riftmax is an example of kind of interacting with other people and kind of doing a lot of communication. I guess one difference is with VR, you're probably more likely to have like networked multiplayer over the internet versus what Nintendo wants to do more is have like multiple people in one living room all interacting with the same game, and that does get a little bit trickier with VR. I guess Sony is trying to do something about that with having like an asymmetrical experience with like one person looking at a screen and one person wearing the Morpheus headset, and they're kind of interacting with the game in different ways. So that's one possibility too.
That's kind of interesting. Makes me think, in Japan, arcades still are a thing, and it's kind of because they're home units, they can't turn it up really loud. Plus, there's big cities, so they just go to the arcades. And I wonder if that's kind of like now the Wii U might be trying to get in more homes, and it's just kind of not. It's very much rooted in this social experience when they play video games, like they have been since the 80s. It's very much they get together in a place and do it, and so that I just kind of put that correlation together. I think that could be a potential thing. What do you think, Mike?
When you first hear what they were saying, it sounds ludicrous, because I think VR is actually revolutionizing the social experience when it comes to video games. When they talk about a social experience like in the same room, that's a social experience that has existed since the beginning of time. Whereas, the social experience in video games, not Nintendo video games, because they have not been good at multiplayer like over the internet, like I think since the beginning, because they had that chance with the Wii, but they really didn't capitalize on it. So I think what he's saying is that the social experience in the same room, which shows his lack of vision, the fact that the social experience can be enhanced to this thing that mankind has never seen, is what we're talking about with VR. So obviously we're dealing with somebody who doesn't even understand the question.
It's definitely somebody that has friends, and
exactly.
I have a couple friends. It's kind of hard to meet similar like folks in South Florida because everybody's ancient. Nate, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts are that this is kind of bullshit, and Nintendo should maybe think about letting Miyamoto be social. Unlock the back room where they're keeping him and let him see somebody else's technology, because yes, it's not the same sort of experience as sitting on a couch with your friends, but that is so limited to me, because how many times can you actually do that? How many groups of friends are able to sit on a couch together? And how many families and groups of friends are separated by some kind of distance or scheduling conflicts or anything else? Gunter, you are my virtual friend, and you feel like an actual person because of VR to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that level of socialization is only possible in VR. And maybe there's going to be that other side of it where some people get sucked into a single player experience and they retreat into their own little world that they are creating on the fly or something. But I think the $2 billion acquisition is proof positive that there are people who do have that vision that Miyamoto apparently lacks. the social implications here are huge. They're tremendous. That could be the real story about VR, because this is different. We are sharing an experience that forms a memory like we are seated at a table having a conversation here, not a memory of sitting and looking at a computer screen with 4 or 5 other people. It's a different thing, and socialization is going to really, it's another thing that has the potential, at least, to be completely transformed by VR. And it just makes me sad that somebody like Miyamoto doesn't see that or can't admit it at this point.
Yeah, no, I just think it is very ironic that we're actually sitting here talking about how antisocial VR is, and we're sitting here chatting away over a table. Like, it's unbelievable. I actually think Miyamoto, he's a bit stuck in the past as well. Like, if you have a look at the titles that have come out, for like, it's all just rehashing the same game over and over again. Like, I've been playing the same Nintendo games the last 25 years. Like, I'm screaming out for new content from them.
Nintendo will probably come into the fold at some point. I think everybody will, is my big grand vision. Cool. Let's move on. Let's do a guest spotlight on Nate. Nate, you are, a big, you go back pretty far with VR, with meant to be seen forums and stuff that I didn't even know about that existed. Tell us a little bit about how you got into all this stuff.
I've been excited about VR for my entire life, basically. Huge gamer, huge computer nerd, all of that stuff. But then VR just didn't really go anywhere. The tech kept arising, and it just wasn't good enough, and it didn't transition into the consumer space. And that was always very disappointing to me. So when I saw John Carmack talking about this is the best consumer VR headset available right now, I said, okay, I believe you, John. And I was a late, just because I was scraping money together, but I was a late Kickstarter backer, and it's been great from there. Since the days of exploring the social stuff on the Metacraft server, all the way through to here, it's been kind of a wild ride, and I think it's going to get wilder. Something that Phil Rosedale said, I think, in one of his talks, was that when you start peeling the onion on this thing, and you really look at VR as a concept, you realize that you could do this for 20 years. You could keep discovering new and interesting issues and avenues to pursue. And that's really my goal right now, is to make this a career. I could see doing VR forever. It's just a matter of, well, how do you actually make money doing it? How do you turn your enthusiasm into, I'm not necessarily looking to get rich here, but that there are people in the community and space right now who are going to get rich too. So I'd be content being a guy who makes VR the thing that I do for a living. I'm just not sure what that looks like yet.
Yeah, and it's been a year, so, pretty much happy anniversary, with the Rift.
Pretty much.
It was July when I got mine.
Yeah. And yeah, one of the first things I did last year was I took my Rift to this gaming convention that I go to every year.
Yeah, it was going to be one of my questions.
And I have a little, vacation slideshow thing that we can do here. I don't know how clunky this is going to be, but we can give it a shot. So that's just a sort of establishing shot. This one isn't even mine, of what Origins is. It's this giant nerd convention in Columbus, Ohio every year, and it's specifically about it's about tabletop nerding out. So pretty much any kind of tabletop game you'll ever play is played at this convention. There are 10 or 20,000 people that show up every year. And it's not as big as Gen Con, but it's kind of the industry inside show put on by this trade association called Gamma. And it's a lot of fun. I've been going to it for about 10 years now. And it's great to go and play some games, meet some people, and sit around and play some game and just get into the whole experience of being a tabletop nerd.
So Nate, tell us a little bit about Team Metatron and all that goodness.
Well, Team Metatron grew out of the Metacraft server, really. It was you and me, Gunter, and Additives and Max and a bunch of other people there who began to understand the implications of socialization in VR because we were all sitting around in a shared space. And I guess one of the first things that happened was we said, well, what can we do with this social stuff? What can we put on that virtual table between us? And we eventually, after a lot of screwing around and wasting time, ended up putting a VR chess thing together. And because I'm sort of tied into this Origins tabletop gaming convention, even last year I was able to bring my Rift there and have a little private room, and missions sort of accomplished at the Rift room at Origins. We got a few people in there. I had a number of friends and enthusiasts as well. I'm thinking I might have to make a trip to Gen Con and properly schedule some other demos, but there are definitely people in the tabletop world who can see the promise of VR. If anyone is interested in helping out with what Metatron is trying to accomplish, we haven't even let all of the cats out of the bags here, but we'd love to have a conversation with anyone who is interested in hearing more about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of this social stuff, starting in Minecraft, and just building up from there, we really, have these values of trying to get people together to work on things, to be friends, and to enjoy their time in VR. So it's been an honor to hang out with these guys. That being said, how about we go around and do some plugs, then we'll do some audience questions. Audience, if you could line up at the microphones. I saw a few people there earlier, so I didn't call on you then, but we could definitely take your questions now. And I'll take a peek at the Hitbox poll question and report on those results. So VR Dave, go ahead and plug away.
Yeah, if anybody wants to visit our site, our YouTube channel, they can go to VirtualRealityReviewer.com, and we should have at least one post a day on the website and probably 2 or 3 reviews or previews up on our YouTube channel. So please hit that subscribe button. We get a kick actually going in every day and seeing new subscribers coming on every day, and please leave comments as well. Like, your feedback is more than welcome, because we're still only learning. Like, I'm only doing this like a couple of months. I've never wrote before. Edmund Ward, actually, the other writer, he has a small bit of experience, and my wife actually, she does devices as well. So as I said, just come along and leave comments, and we'd be delighted to hear from you.
Excellent. How about you, MS Coder?
So yeah, feel free to check out Duke VR if you haven't tried it yet. I'll be sure to get that updated so it works with the DK2. Besides that, I don't have any of my own VR projects at the moment, so I'll plug Riftmax Karaoke instead. Thursday nights, US time. Always a good time.
People really should check it out. You don't have to sing if you're really shy about it. Just come in, hang out, dance around. It's good stuff. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, obviously come out to karaoke Thursday nights, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's 8 Eastern. But besides that, we have a couple new shows coming out very soon. One of those is a comedy show. So as soon as we find enough comedians, it's really fun. I mean, even if you're just going to be in the audience, just and you want to walk up on stage and like tell a joke or two, even if you're like reading them off Google, it's a really good chance to learn, to get your VR legs, and it helps you in real life too, to get on stage and stuff, and like practicing the stuff in VR is great. So I mean, it's like you're gonna have the laugh track no matter what. So tell like a stupid joke or whatever, and get that out of your system. Besides that, we have some other good shows like that game show we're gonna do, and besides the official stuff, we're gonna make it really easy to do your own show soon. But besides that, I guess a big announcement is we're gonna have the Kickstarter. Hopefully some people come out and donate. I know a lot of people have already shown their appreciation with donations and everything, and we really appreciate that. I guess that's it.
Well, you got me as a backer and a bunch of us here, and it's we all wish you tons of success. So that's really cool to hear. And Nate, you pretty much plugged away, but is there anything else?
MetatronVR.com is the website. That's probably the best way to get in touch with us at this point. You can also check out vrchess.net. And there is another still secret URL that the chess project is going to be turning into. We have a whole thing. We have physics-enabled rollable dice. We have Mitch's pool table that's probably going to be coming in. Basically, VR chess is not just about chess. Ultimately, it's about a lot of things. And keep an eye open for all that stuff, and visit metatronvr.com if you want the inside scoop.
More importantly, the project is all about fun. It's getting us together and have something to do and have fun together. So super cool. The Hitbox results from the question, how much do you plan on spending on VR peripherals? Not the HMD itself. We have 7% nothing they'll be spending, 11% no more than $99, 30% $100 to $300, and 11% $300 to $500, and 40% more than $500. So that's pretty interesting. On my left, I got two people lined up. First person, can you state your name and ask your question?
Hey everybody, it's Ruuubick. I just wanted to have everybody's opinion on the Riftsino demo that just came out, the casino in VR, and what everybody think about it.
I've heard about that one. I heard it uses the leap motion. Is that right? I mean, that alone sounded like really cool. Like you're tracking your fingers and like you could press the slot machine buttons and stuff. I mean, it sounded like a blast.
It's strictly a single-player experience, though. Is that right? I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, basically just walk in the casino, just sit at a table, and you just can play multiple card game. And there's an AI in front of you, I think, who's shuffling cards and giving you what you need.
See,
yeah, that's totally different. Yeah.
As a team that is already kind of exploring that stuff, because the very next thing that we're thinking about tackling after chess is poker, because we think that that's going to be a fantastic experience, and it's going to be a lot like Riftmax. It's going to be sitting around a table, having a conversation. You've got something to do there in front of you, and I don't like the idea of trying to translate that kind of experience into one where there's an AI across the table from you, because I don't really see what the point of that is. I mean, I'm sure it's a very cool tech demo with the leap motion manipulating things, but ultimately, I don't want to play poker against an AI. I want to play poker against a person and lots of people, and I'm not sure that that's anywhere in this roadmap for Riftsino.
I haven't tried it yet myself, but I will actually try it over the weekend because I have Elite Motion, so I'm actually looking forward to it.
Cool, Ruuubick. Thanks, man. And who we got next?
Nukemarine.
Yo.
Okay, y'all mentioned, and I've been hearing it, y'all are spending a lot of time in the social aspects of VR, mainly in Riftmax. Yeah, I think some people, this is almost like your second life here. And also, I believe VR Dave mentioned Janus VR, he's been experiencing a lot of time. My question is going in the opposite direction. How do you see VR becoming making people more productive so that corporations will be putting virtual reality devices inside their office buildings?
Oh yeah, I love Janus VR, and what I actually think is being social is about expressing yourself as well. And with Janus VR especially, you can actually build your own rooms, and you can actually build whatever you want, and your room is an expression of yourself. So I actually think it's going to be fantastic that way. And if you look at something like PlayStation Home, where they had the model where companies would come in and they'd actually build their own, say like the Red Bull area, they had like say a skydiving platform, and that was promoting some kind of event. Like that's going to definitely happen in Janus VR as well. I can definitely see that happening.
I think we're going to see a lot of these demos and stuff, hopefully moving towards the creative side of the consumer, or the player. Like, I'm not trying to plug what we're trying to do here, but like with these 40 videos that people are making, it's amazing to see what people come out with. Like, in the first week since we released that, you know. So having the like the stage designer and stuff is like something I just can't wait to see, like what people come up with, you know.
Excellent. Anything else to follow up with that, Nuke?
No, thank you very much. Good show.
Good questions. Thanks, man. Thanks. All right. I think that's about it. I'm going to wrap it up. I'll see you all next time on Virtually Incorrect. It's been a pleasure being your host. Again, thanks to everybody here, the guests and audience, Riftmax crew, Holotape, Ruuubick, authors and commenters on the stories, and this whole awesome VR community. So stay tuned and keep on riding the wonderful. Good night, everybody.